This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Thank you so much for joining us here this morning in the Ponovezher Shul. What a schus to have Rabbi Daniel Glatstein join us in South Africa and to be part of a group, a chabura of people that are coming to give chizuk to the South African community. And what an honor to have Rabbi Glatstein. Rabbi Glatstein has an amazing amount of Shiurim on Torah Anytime, and that please do your best to follow him and to download any of the Shiurim that you have. You can talk to Reb Nosson at the back over there. We'll give you a QR code for any of the Shiurim and for Torah Anytime to download it. So with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Rabbi Glatstein. Shlita.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, friends. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's a great honor to be here in South Africa, in Capetown, but especially in this holy Beis HaKnesses, in the Ponovezh Shul. This shul was established in 1940 by one of the great heroes of the Jewish people of the 20th century. Many people don't know much about the Ponovezh Rav, but the Ponovezh Rav is one of my personal heroes and one of the great builders and architects of Torah in the 20th century. You know, in 1941, the state of Israel, which was not a state yet, but the state in the Palestine was very tenuous. Do you know that the Germans were actually bombing in the area of Tel Aviv? Many people don't even know that the Germans reached as far as Tel Aviv. They were dropping bombs on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. And actually, they were also dropping leaflets. And you know what these leaflets said? The leaflets said, we've already killed millions of Jews in Europe, and you're next. The Germans were planning on entering Israel, and in a matter of 10, 11 days, liquidating the entire country. They had caravans set up. They had purchased caravans. They were going to take the exhaust pipe of the caravans, turn it inwardly, and gas the entire Yishuv of Eretz Yisrael. The Arabs were broadcasting on the radio, Jews, we're going to slit your throats, we're going to murder your children, we're going to violate your wives. And they were holding flags of Hitler outside of the window. This was the state of the Yishuv in 1941. And at that fateful time in history, the Ponovezh Rav saw a mountaintop in Bnei Brak, and he said he's going to dedicate this mountain to build the yeshiva of Ponovezh. And at the occasion, he invited the mayor of the city, he invited Rav Herzog, and Rav Herzog said to him, Rabbi, you're dreaming. The Germans are about to invade the state of Israel. You're dreaming. And the Ponovezh Rav said, yes, I'm dreaming, but I'm not sleeping. And they held a meeting, and all the great rabbis of Israel were at this meeting. And one of the great Rabbanim got up and he said, in only a matter of days, the Germans are going to plow through here and destroy the entire Yishuv of Eretz Yisrael. And everyone broke down crying. And then another great rabbi got up and he said, the Torah is in danger, Judaism is in danger. And again, everyone began to cry. And the Ponovezh Rav stood up, his face beaming. Many had never even heard the Ponovezh Rav speak before. And the Ponovezh Rav said, you're making a big mistake. The Torah is not in danger. God gave us a promise. The Torah is eternal. The Jewish people are eternal. If you feel that the Torah is in danger, then this is the special moment in history. That if you want to help rebuild the Jewish people and rebuild the Torah, you will gain and access tremendous siyata d'shmaya. Siyata d'shmaya means heavenly assistance. And in that moment, people didn't know how, people didn't know from where, but they were infused with great hope that somehow God would save the Jewish people in Israel. You know, the Ponovezh Rav was born in the year 1886. He lived till 1969. He lived 83 years. And he was a great fundraiser. In fact, he traveled the entire world to collect money. The joke goes, how do you know, is there life on Mars? How do you know there's no life on Mars? So they said, well, if there was life on Mars, the Ponovezh Rav would have went there to collect money. So Ponovezh Rav went everywhere, especially, he liked to go to Miami. You know, Jews like to go to Miami Beach. You ever heard about, you heard about the United States of America? So Jews, they live in New York, and then in the winter they go south, because the Gemara says, Haroitza lahachkim yajim. If you want to become wise, you go south. So the Ponovezher Rav used to spend 3 to 4 months in Miami Beach. And he used to go there to collect money. And he was the world's all-time greatest fundraiser. So there was once a guy, he couldn't get a penny out of him. Every year the Ponovezher Rav would go to this guy's house. He would sit with him, he would schmooze with him, and the guy would say, okay, nice talking to you, it's nice knowing you, nice schmoozing, have a nice day. And this happened year after year after year, until finally, one year the Ponovezher Rav came to the house, and he was speaking to the man, and then he went over to the man and he said, right now, you're going to write a $5,000 check for me. And the guy started shaking, and the guy, you know, he was looking at the rabbi like, how do you have the audacity to be so blunt and ask me for money like that? But you can't turn down the Ponovezher Rav. So the man took out his checkbook and he wrote a $5,000 check and he handed it to him. And they asked the Ponovezher Rav, you know, you're such a courteous, polite gentleman. Why did you, act this way towards a man? He said, I'll tell you what happened. I remember 50 years ago, I was a student by the Chafetz Chaim. You know, the Ponovezher Rav was a Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim. He learned in Radin b'Chavrusa with Rebbe Chanan Wasserman. He was a Rebbe Chanan's Chavrusa. And the Chafetz Chaim once told him that after World War I, there was a man, after World War I, there were rich people who would come to shuls, they were homeless, and they would sleep in the shul. And there was a formerly wealthy guy who came into the shul. He was sleeping on a board, and he went over to the Chafetz Chaim. He said, Chafetz Chaim, you should have taken all my money from me. And then the Chafetz Chaim remembered that before World War I broke out, the Chafetz Chaim went to the man's house, and he would ask him for money. And the man would say, no, it's not a good time. My money's not liquid. It's not available. Come back next year. I'll leave it to the yeshiva in a will. I can't give it right now. And World War I broke out, and the man lost all his money, and now this wealthy man was homeless, and he came to the Chafetz Chaim. I have tainus on you, Chafetz Chaim. Why didn't you rip my money out of my pocket? Now I don't have money, and I don't have the zechus of contributing to your yeshiva. Ponovezher Rav said, from there he learned that when people contribute to Torah causes, they're not doing you a favor. They're not helping you. You're doing them a favor. The Ponovezher Rav said, from there I learned that when you need to ask people to help out, to give to a yeshiva, to give to a worthy cause, they're not doing you a favor. You're doing them a favor. But actually it's very interesting. On another occasion, there was a wealthy man who was diagnosed with a terrible illness. The doctor said, he's not going to live more than 5 years. And the man was about 45 years old. Very wealthy guy. So what he did was he took out an annuity that would pay him a lot of money until he would turn 90. Because he figured that the insurance company figured they would only have to pay it up for 2, 3, 4 years. Meanwhile, this guy was collecting tens of thousands of dollars. He reached 45, he reached 50, he reached 55, he reached 60, and all the doctors who predicted he was going to die, they're already in their grave. And this guy, he's 65, he's 70, and he would contribute generously to the Ponovezh Yeshiva. And every year the Ponovezher Rav would go to his house, and he would give multiple times a year, $5,000, $5,000, $5,000. Meanwhile, the guy's turning 65, 70, 75, 80, and he's living in a big mansion on the water, and he's collecting tens of thousands of dollars a month from his annuity. He's 89 years old. It's a problem if he lives longer than 90. He turns 90 years old. He has no income. Ponovezher Rav says, let's go to his house. So you can't go to the guy's house. It's going to be embarrassing for him. He can't give you any money anymore. His annuity has ended. He said, we're going to go to his house. Ponovezher Rav went to his house. He said, Rabbi Yid, I want to tell you something. For the last decades, you've been supporting the Ponovezher Yeshiva. Now it's the responsibility of the Ponovezh Yeshiva to support you. So the Ponovezh Yeshiva has put you on the payroll. You will now be collecting tens of $1,000s a month from Yeshivas Ponovezh. And the man lived many years. And people would say to the Ponovezh Rav, how could you do such a thing? By the way, you tell me the last time a yeshiva sent money to somebody else. That's not a common thing. When the man died, he left in his will his entire estate to the Ponovezher Yeshiva. This gives you a little glimpse of the amazing personality of the Ponovezher Rav. There's a sefer, a very interesting sefer. Did you know that actually the Ponovezh Yeshiva was built by South African Jews? Many people don't know this. I even didn't know this until a couple days ago. Ponovezh Rav had left Ponovezh. He went to South Africa to collect money to support the Ponovezh Yeshiva back in Lithuania. What happened? The war broke out. Now, it's really heartbreaking. But even though we have many survivors from Poland, many survivors from Hungary, many survivors from Russia, almost no Jews survived Lithuania. First of all, the Russians killed about 50% of Lithuanian Jewry. Then the Lithuanians killed out more Lithuanian Jews, and then the Nazis finished them off. There was a yeshiva in Ponovezh of 1,000 students. You know how many survivors there were? Less than 10. I actually heard from a friend of mine, Rabbi Yechiel Novak. He told me first-hand story. He remembers one of the Bachrim who survived Yeshivas Ponovezh during the Holocaust. But he was so shaken and traumatized by what happened in Ponovezh, he moved to Los Angeles and he left the fold. He did not remain observant. He got married and he had a baby. And every year the Ponovezh Rav would visit them. Ponovezh Rav never said, Rabbi Yid, why don't you start davening? Why don't you learn? Why don't you put on tefillin? Ponovezh Rav said not one word. He would just sit with them, schmooze with them, have coffee with them, year after year after year. They had a baby. The baby turned 2, 3, 4, 5. The Ponovezh Rav never told the guy, put on a yarmulke when I come, say Kriya Shema, not one word. The baby's 6 years old. The kid is 6 years old. Ponovezh Rav comes, Shalom Aleichem. How old is your son? 6. You're sending him to yeshiva tomorrow. Yeshiva? They didn't eat kosher. They didn't keep Shabbos. They didn't even go to shul on Yom Kippur for Ne'ilah. Yeshiva? He said, you have to send your kid to yeshiva. You learned in yeshiva's Ponovezh. You have to continue on the legacy of the Jewish people. Yeshiva, we don't believe, we don't keep. Ponovezh Rav stayed in the house an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's 12 a.m. It's 1 a.m. It's 2 a.m. He wasn't going to leave the house until they committed to send the boy to yeshiva. At 6 a.m., he finally wore them down. After 12 hours, he wore down this couple. My friend told me, my friend is a Rav in Ashdod. He's a Rosh Kollel in Ashdod. His Kollel is named Kollel Yosef Das, I believe, named after Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahaneman. He said this boy went to yeshiva. He has great-grandchildren, dozens and dozens and dozens of great-grandchildren. All are God-fearing Shomrei Torah mitzvahs. Why? Because of the love of the Ponovezh Rav and the understanding and the timing of the Ponovezh Rav to know the right time to influence this family. So, if I may, I'm just going to share with you one hashkafa of Ponovezh. After all, here we are. We're in the Ponovezh Shul. There's no other shul in the whole world called Ponovezh. Even in Ponovezh, there's no Ponovezh Shul. It's the yeshiva, but this is the only Ponovezh Shul in the world. There's a picture of the Ponovezh Rav in the front. You know what he looks like? I'm going to show you. Before I leave, you need to see the face of this man. He had a sparkling personality, a winning personality. So I'm going to tell you a very important idea that is espoused in the Ponovezh Yeshiva. This was taught by Reb Shmuel Rozovsky, one of the Rosh Yeshivas in Ponovezh, and Reb Chaim Friedlander, the Mashgiach of Ponovezh. You know, there's a Gemara in Masechta Pesachim. The Gemara tells us about a rabbi by the name of Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes would review his learning every 30 days. He would review the whole Shas. At the end of the 30 days, Rav Sheshes would climb up to the top of a ship. He would climb up to the mast of the ship, and he would say, Chadoi nafshoi, Chadoi nafshoi. Rejoice, my soul. Rejoice, my soul. L'cha ani karai. I learned for myself. L'cha ana tanoi. I learned Mishnayos for myself. This was the statement of Rav Sheshes. Every 30 days, Rav Sheshes would complete the entirety of the Torah, and he would then declare, rejoice, rejoice, I learned for me. So the Gemara asks, what do you mean you learn for you? Are you supposed to learn for yourself? Our sages teach us that if not for the learning of Torah, the world could not exist. You know, if there would be a moment in time that nobody was learning Torah, the world would cease to exist. Reb Chaim Volozhiner says the reason why God created time zones is so that when Jews in Capetown are going to sleep, Jews in New York are waking up to learn. So around the clock, there's always somebody learning. If there would be a moment of time where somebody wasn't learning, the world would cease to exist. So why would Reb Sheshes say, I learn for myself, I learn for myself? By learning, you uphold the entire world. Isn't it selfish to learn for yourself? Says the Gemara, Me'ikara. Does anybody know what the word Me'ikara means? You ever come across that word in the Gemara? Me'ikara?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Very good. What does the word Me'ikara mean?
Ikara.
Yesterday. The main thing.
Me'ikara usually means in the beginning. The Gemara says Me'ikara in the beginning. Ki masninan, when you learn for yourself. That's the Gemara's answer. In the beginning, when you learn for yourself. So the question is, Rav Sheshes, though, is not a beginner. Rav Sheshes is an accomplished scholar. Why would the Gemara say, in the beginning, when you learn for yourself? Rav Sheshes wasn't a beginner. Says the Vilna Gaon, the word Me'ikara does not actually mean in the beginning. You know what Me'ikara means? What's your name? Manny. More like Manny is saying. Me'ikara doesn't mean in the beginning. Me'ikara means primarily, fundamentally, you learn for yourself. And I want to share with you an amazing teaching of the Vilna Gaon. Most people are familiar with the idea that there are two categories of mitzvahs. There's Bein Adam Lamakom and Bein Adam Lachavera. You know what Bein Adam Lamakom is? Between you and God. So when you daven, that's a mitzvah between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And let's say when you do chesed, that's a mitzvah between you and your friend, Bein Adam Lachavera. Says the Vilna Gaon, there's a third category of mitzvahs. That third category is Bein Adam La'atzmai, between you and yourself. Say, what does that mean, between you and yourself? What mitzvah is there between you and yourself? Says the Vilna Gaon, learning Torah is a mitzvah between you and yourself. Could anybody explain that? What do you think that means, that learning Torah is between you and yourself? I understand there are mitzvahs between you and God. There are mitzvahs between you and your fellow man. What does it mean, learning Torah is a mitzvah between you and yourself? The answer is, and this is one of the most important things we need to know when we're in a yeshiva and we spend time learning Torah, what is the reason we learn Torah? Says the Vilna Gaon, God blew into the soul endless potential. When God created man, where does our neshama come from? Our neshama is a piece of the divine. The Zohar teaches, man de nafach midilei nafach. One who blows from within themselves. When God instilled our soul into us, He put a piece of Himself, so to speak, into us. Which means we have endless potential, infinite ability, infinite capability. So the question is, how do you access that? How do you tap into the infinite ability that God breathed into us? There's a special mitzvah God gave us. It's called Limanat Torah. Limanat Torah is Bein Adam La'atzmai. It's not between you and God. It's not between you and your fellow man. It's between you and yourself. For a person to access and to tap into the infinite ability that HaKadosh Baruch Hu breathed into us, He gave us a special key. That key is Talmud Torah, learning Torah. When you learn Torah, you're not doing it for God. You're not doing it for your fellow man. There's only one individual. You're not doing it for your parents. You're not doing it for your rabbis. There's only one person who you're doing it for fundamentally. You know who that is? Yourself. For a person in this world to be who he can be, you need Talmud Torah. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah is the mitzvah bein Adam la'atzmai. Says the Vilna Gaon, Rav Sheshes, when he would finish his learning every 30 days, he would say, Chadai nafshai, rejoice me! Not rejoice my rabbi, not rejoice my mother, not rejoice my father, but fundamentally, me'ikara, Chadai nafshai. It's for yourself, to be able to bring out the infinite potential that Hashem instilled in you. This is one of the teachings of Ponovezh. So where could be better than in the Ponovezh Beis HaKnesses to learn about this? And I'm very grateful for your kind attention this morning. I wish you all great success in all of your endeavors. Bracha v'hatzlacha. And until next time, thank you very much. And Hashem should give you all siyata d'shmaya in all of your endeavors. Thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.